Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome here if you are new. I am very excited, like I always say, about these videos because of the food that I have in front of me today. And this is all gluten-free, by the way. That's why these graham crackers look weird. It's because I had to get them gluten-free and they were like the only kind. I went to 3 different stores and this was the only one I found them at, so gotta do what you gotta do. These are also gluten-free, which I didn't know that they had, but I was super excited for because I was going to do hot dogs with like kind of weird hot dog buns because they were gluten-free, but they're like really thick and like not soft like I want a hot dog bun to be. So yeah, this is the better option. This is a s'mores dip. It's just chocolate and marshmallows, and then I have like some Oreos and also the graham crackers to dip in it. And these are supposed to be like honey breaded corn dogs, so we'll see. In today's video, I'm going to try to get it done in one video, but it is kind of like a long story with a lot of stuff that happened and like it went on for a really long time. So I guess we'll just see how far I can get through before I have to stop. It honestly doesn't taste any different from like a regular corn dog. So you guys have probably heard of this story. I had never heard of it, but I only recently started getting into like true crime stuff. And it also happened back when I was in high school, so I wasn't really following much other than like my own sports teams and homework. But it's the story of a girl named Elisa Lam. So Elisa was in college and she was from Canada, I believe Vancouver. And she was like really, I wouldn't say popular, but she was really present on Twitter, or not Twitter, on Tumblr. And this was back when Tumblr was kind of like still a big deal and everybody used Tumblr. She was known as an introvert, but on her Tumblr, she even spoke about like how it kind of helped her and gave her a place to escape to and be who she really was. And I believe she was aspiring to be a writer. So her Tumblr was filled with a lot of like poetry and a lot of really deep thoughts and personal things. And she did speak out a lot about her depression and having to be on medication and, you know, how she felt on bad days versus good days. These Oreos are gluten-free too. So she decides that she wants to take a trip and see more of the world because she was feeling pretty sheltered and like she didn't have a whole lot of experience. And she planned a trip to California. There was supposed to be I think she was stopping at 5 different cities along the way. And I know she had already been to San Diego. And she had posted on her Tumblr every new spot that she went. Or was it San Francisco that she had been to? Either way, she ends up in Los Angeles. And she was traveling by herself. So I think it's pretty normal, especially if you're traveling by yourself and you're a college student who maybe doesn't have so much money, that you look for the cheapest places in whatever area you're visiting to stay in. And I don't know if Elisa had heard about this through the grapevine or if she found it on a like a search website. But she ended up getting a stay at a place called the Cecil Hotel. Now, the Cecil Hotel has like a really long history. It's been around for a very long time. Since Los Angeles started becoming like the booming area to be in California. And it's always been known as like a really affordable place. And it's where a lot of homeless would actually stay for like $5 or $6 a night. So the Cecil Hotel is positioned in a place in Los Angeles it's like it's filled with like surrounded by a lot of homeless people and kind of down, I forget what they call it, but down where a lot of there are a lot of drugs and a lot of regular everyday laws are just kind of like not followed, and just it's kind of an understanding for the police that this was like a really bad area and a lot of this stuff just kind of went unseen because there was so much of it and there was no way you could stop it. But a lot of times cities kind of section off an area of the city and it'll be known that, hey, this is where all the homeless are supposed to live and this is where it's kind of like a no rule zone. And it's just kind of left alone by the people and like if you live there, you know not to go down there. So the Cecil Hotel has, like I said, always been an area for like homeless people. If they needed a place to stay, it was like absurdly cheap, and that way they don't have to live out on the streets. And it was also where a lot of people who, like a halfway house for people who had just gotten out of jail or maybe got into like some really bad stuff and had nowhere to go. Also like the big crime area where a lot of I'm pretty sure there was a serial killer that actually lived there for a little while, but Anyway, super cheap. And it's, since they had like this contract that said that the Cecil had to stay as like affordable housing for homeless or less fortunate people. And so when the hotel went under new ownership, they tried to swing the hotel to become like an actual hotel only, and it turned into half of the hotel was meant for long-term stay and the other half turned into a hotel. But there was no way to separate the two hotels, like the one where the homeless, crime, drugs, all of that went on, and then the actual hotel for like tourists and stuff, because the elevators were shared. So anybody could get to either place using the elevators, which I think could have been avoided, and they definitely could have just taken the buttons out of one elevator and it only went to like floors 3 through 5, and then take the buttons out of the other elevator and took out 3 through 5. So then, you know, like 6 through 14. Anyway, it was very doable, and they just did not think it through the right way, in my opinion. But Elisa, like many other out-of-country, out-of-state tourists, only saw the Cecil Hotel for a couple nights stay that looked really nice, had been redone, and really just looks like a nice hotel that was for some reason really cheap. So Elisa decided to stay at the Cecil. Elisa was like super, super close with her family. And while she was on vacation, she called them every night and like updated them on her day and where she was staying. And then one night she didn't call. And so her parents were really concerned, and they called the police. So the police find out where Elisa was staying, and they went down to the Cecil Hotel and went to her room to find out that it had been completely cleaned out. So when hotels, like when someone checks out and they leave stuff behind, hotels will put stuff like in a storage closet, I think for up to like 30 days or something. Depends on what their policy is, but they keep it. And so when the police had gotten there, the whole room had been cleaned out and all of her stuff was gone. And so they went downstairs and they asked the front desk, they're like, hey, do you know what happened to this girl's stuff? Like, she's missing. Why did you clean the room out? Like, couldn't you tell that something was off? Because literally all of her stuff, her cell phone, her wallet, her bags, all of her clothes, like everything was still in the room, and yet you guys chose to clean it out. And so they're like, yeah, that's our policy. Like, people forget things here all the time, because, you know, it's like, for one, a really weird place in Los Angeles, and also tourists who they just don't know anything about them. Maybe that's like a normal thing for them. I don't know. So automatically the police are thinking, okay, well, there's some foul play here. Because the hotel staff, like, that's just kind of weird, and maybe we should start investigating them. So the first thing that the police asked for are the videos from the cameras, because I don't know of all, but pretty much all, if not all, hotels, at least in the common areas, like the lobby and the hallways, have cameras set up so that they can see what's going on. And in case something like this did happen, they could always just pull the tapes. So the Cecil only had, I don't know how many exactly, but they only had a few cameras throughout the entire hotel. So they had some in the lobby. There was a camera in each elevator, and when only a couple of the floors had cameras on them. And oddly enough, Elisa's floor did not have a camera in the hallway. So while the police were scrubbing through the tapes and the very few like cameras that they actually had, they decided to do a search within the entire hotel and look in everybody's room and everybody's closet and like take in dogs and search the entire hotel door to door. Because they were like, hey, we think that Elisa might still be in here, so let's do a search. And they go from the lobby all the way up to the roof. The dog only alerted one time at Elisa's room and then another time at the window, because the window had like one of those little, they had like, what are they called, scaffoldings outside, like ladders, and you know, going all the way up the side of the buildings like a lot of buildings and cities do. And it wasn't even on the same floor that Elisa was staying on, but still the dog picked up her scent at that window. So then they're thinking, okay, well maybe she crawled out and she was trying to run away from someone, because that's the only reason she would be out by a window that wasn't even on her floor, you know? So it was really bad timing, but at this time, there was an ex-police officer who was killing current police officers within the LAPD. And this was like their number one case to be on, like, because of course Elisa, like, she was young and everybody wanted to find out what happened to her, but at the same time, people were currently being killed by this man who says that he wouldn't stop until the police killed him. So they're like, okay, well, maybe we should put more people onto this police murder case. And I think they left like 5 of the investigators on Elisa's case. And so the lead investigator and then like the assistant investigator on this case sat down, and I think for like 10 to 12 hours a day they were just scrubbing through videos, watching it second by second, because there hadn't been like any footage of Elisa that they had really seen other than one of her coming into the hotel. And other than that, I saw nothing. So like she didn't leave the hotel. She like went through the lobby. Nobody left with her. And then all of a sudden they see a screen of Elisa, and she got onto the elevator. And it's really kind of eerie footage. You can actually look up the entire, I think it's like it's a couple minute long video, and it just shows frame by frame Elisa on the elevator. And she was doing like some kind of weird stuff. Like she was doing weird little hand movements, and she was doing like looking like somebody was kind of following her. She was watching out for someone, and she got in the elevator, and then the doors of the elevator weren't closing, like they stayed open, I think for 2 minutes straight. And she pressed like a bunch of the buttons on the floors, so she had selected more than one floor, and she's like peeking her head out, and she's looking back in, and she's like hiding in the corner of the elevator, so it kind of looks like she's running away from someone. And then all of a sudden she steps out into the hallway, and she disappears from the screen, all the while the elevator had not closed, and it had been 2 minutes, and she wasn't pressing like any buttons or anything. So it's almost like somebody was outside of the elevator holding it open so that it wouldn't move. So the police at this point, because there are so few investigators on this case at this point, they decided there's nothing else that they could do, and they released this footage of Elisa on the elevator to the public. And they asked for the public's help because they were like, hey, are we missing anything that you guys can see or that we're not seeing? And the public like went crazy. So you know how you have internet sleuths or like web sleuths, and then people who are just, they like solving crimes and like spending, you know, all of their free time doing this. This was their hobby. So people took it, and it became like a huge thing on the internet. People were like, what happened to Elisa Lam? There were tons of YouTube videos, people following it, podcasts. Everyone was trying to find her. And at this time, when they released it, I think she had been missing for 5 days, maybe, when they released it. Between like 5 and 9 days. So it had been close to a week when the LAPD finally reached out, and they're like, hey, we need your guys' help to find Elisa. And people just went off with the story. Like they started analyzing it clip by clip. This one, it was really weird because one, nobody knows why the elevator wasn't closing unless there was somebody outside holding the elevator open button, or like, you know, the floor button, so that the elevator wouldn't move. But you didn't see anybody in the screen. And then Elisa like got out of the elevator, and she started gesturing and looking like she was talking to somebody down the hall, and she then stepped back in, and she was looking to see, like peering around the corner, and then she got out again. And finally, I think like a minute after Elisa disappeared from the video, the elevator doors finally shut. But it was kind of like the doors shut in a really weird way, to where it almost looked like some of it had been cut out, like some of the video, because the doors closed so quickly, and then the timestamp down at the bottom was illegible. You couldn't read the time. Like people were in there trying to decode it, and they had they basically decoded it to find out that there was, I think, like 9 seconds of tape missing, something like that. That was just erased from the footage from the Cecil. And so people were like, well, somebody at the Cecil had something to do with it, because they handed this footage to the police, and it clearly shows that, not clearly, but to their deduction shows that this it was missing footage. And everybody thought, they were like, hey, the missing footage is probably the person that was involved in Elisa's disappearance. I don't know why those keep breaking. These aren't bad, by the way. They're a little bit thick, but they taste okay. So, the footage is out there. People are tearing it apart piece by piece. And everyone is hoping that Elisa is still alive. Because at this point, they really have no idea. All right. I'm full. That's going to be it for me. Hate to leave you with the cliffhanger, but that's about all the story that I can do with my stomach being as full as it is. Thank you for watching. I will definitely continue this story in the next video and finish it then so that you guys can hear all of the theories, find out if they ever solved it, what happened. Oh, did I say this was on Netflix? It's like something about the Cecil Hotel, and it was specifically this case at the Cecil. It's on Netflix though. It's like a 4-episode thing. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can see the next time that I upload. And that way you can see the second part of this video and finish out Elisa's story. But yeah, okay, bye.